people, welcome to It's Murder. Today's case takes us back to North London N19. When on the 25th of January 2021 Romario Opia would tragically lose his life in a knife battle. Right outside of a school. He was 15 years old. Romario Opia has been described as a beautiful and loving boy who loved his mum and treated women very respectfully. Growing up he was an active kid who loved to ride his bike. He would go on bike rides all over London. He liked to keep himself occupied and attended a local youth group, Cornwallis Adventure Playground, till he was 13 years old, at which point he became too old to attend. Tyler Clancy, a close friend, believes things would have looked a lot different if Romario had had or knew of a place, a safe environment to hang out with friends and take part in activities. Unfortunately, he did not, and with plenty of free time on his hands he soon found himself a set of new friends. Friends that had already been enticed by the street's grandeur. They were all members of the same gang, representing Holloway roadsides. Although I'm not certain what the gang's name is. It is believed that Romario was really close with one of them until an internal dispute caused the gang to split. Romario and a few other boys created their own gang, possibly called the Crash Squad or CS. I don't know what caused the dispute, but Romario and his bestie were no longer friends, and the wound was deep. The 25th of January 2021, it was a cold day, snow was present on the ground. Even so, sometime after 5 p.m. Romario and a few of his friends would grab their bikes and set off to go and get some food from the local chip shop. Armed and dangerous. At around the same time O'Neill Cameron 18, two 16-year-olds whose names have not been released were also out and about, also armed and dangerous. Before the split it is said Romario and one of the 16-year-olds had been close friends for quite some time. Nonetheless, as soon as Romario's group saw the other group, they would begin to shout threats of violence, which of course was reciprocated by the other group. Witnesses claim Romario jumped off his bike and ran toward Cameron and his group brandishing a machete. Both groups ran towards each other, except for one boy from the other group, he stayed back. They all brandished zombie and Rambo-style knives. Cameron swung his knife, striking Romario to the chest. He fell to the ground. Cameron and his group fled, and Romario's group chased them. In the meantime, witnesses and passers-by were trying to help and comfort Romario as he lay dying on the floor. Romario's mother had gotten wind that her son had been injured. When she arrived at the scene, the police and ambulance were already there. Romario Opia would be pronounced dead just after 5:30 p.m. His mother would find out when a paramedic told her, "Sorry for your loss." You can only imagine her devastation at this point. A witness said she arrived at the scene and despite everything that was going on, all she could hear was really loud crying. Elsewhere, Cameron had successfully fled the scene, but he had been wearing sliders, one of which he left behind in his escape. Once back to safety he messaged a friend to go and get it for him. He must have done this right under the police's noses. The friend completed this mission and returned the slider back to Cameron. Police would begin their investigations and swiftly arrest a 16-year-old boy on suspicion of a fray. He would be released the following day without charge. I believe this to be the boy that stood back when the stabbing occurred. On the 26th of January the other 16-year-old would be arrested but released on bail pending further investigation. It would take another couple of days for them to catch up with Cameron, but on the 28th of January 2021 O'Neill Cameron was arrested on suspicion of murder. A warrant was granted for the search of his home and phone records. During the search they found two large knives. One had DNA on it but whose DNA was not specified, the perpetrator or the victim. In the washing machine they also found Cameron's sliders and his clothes from the day of the murder, with one sock considerably dirtier than the other from fleeing the scene shoeless. Phone records revealed that Cameron had sent a friend back to get his slider. By the 29th Cameron had been charged with murder and possession of an offensive weapon. He would attend some preliminary court hearings and then be remanded into prison to await trial at the Old Bailey on the 19th of July 2022. On the 24th of June 2021 the 16-year-old that had previously been bailed was charged with murder and possession of an offensive weapon. He too would attend some preliminary court hearings and then be remanded to prison until July 2022. During the trial the court heard that Romario was seen with two other boys on bicycles who then stopped to argue with Cameron and the two other boys. Prosecutor Jonathan Higgs, KC, stated they were armed with very large knives and were obviously challenging the other group. They were also shown CCTV footage of Cameron stabbing Romario in the chest. O'Neill Cameron and the now 17-year-old both denied murder, However, they both pled guilty to possession of an offensive weapon. Cameron admitted killing Romario but claimed it was in self-defense. The trial would last a total of 3 weeks. The jury would deliberate for 14 hours before a verdict was reached. On June 8, 2022, both defendants would be found not guilty of murder. O'Neal Cameron would be found guilty of manslaughter, whereas the 17-year-old was acquitted of both charges. He was free to leave the courts. Cameron was remanded back into custody. On the 22nd of July 2022, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Thank you for joining me today. Don't miss the next episode out next Wednesday. And keep your eyes peeled for a Halloween special. Don't forget to like and subscribe.